Guys, as I said earlier, I'm not going to be covering every single development diary for EU5, only pile them up once a few of them have gathered, and then afterwards talk about them in bulk. Today, I actually want to do exactly that. We've got a few that have already been released, and I especially want to focus on the Bavarian gameplay flavor, which also has a revamped map for the Holy Roman Empire with some new additions, some changes that I think you guys are really going to be enjoying. So let's get right into this. This was presented by Pavia. Essentially, it's about the duchies of Upper and Lower Bavaria, ruled by the Wittelsbach and also divided by the Wittelsbach. We also have the electorate of the Palatinate of the Rhine, established in 1329 at the Treaty of Pavia, and I'm pretty sure Pavia mentioned that intentionally. It's his name. Yes, that's right. In case you didn't know, the Wittelsbach also ruled in the Palatinate. We have here the screen for the Holy Roman Emperor Ludwig IV von Wittelsbach, since the HRE starts with Ludwig IV as the emperor. Massive change from the Habsburg ruling the HRE as we know it in 1444. The background is basically the throne of Charlemagne, which is in Aachen, the westernmost annoying opium that we know in EU4. It's probably the same going to be in EU5, who's to say, right? He starts with 66, 45, 80. It's actually average, not amazing compared to some of the other ones we've seen. Now, as you see here, we have the core lands of Bavaria, the Palatinate to the north, which was recently established, and then we have Lower Bavaria and Upper Bavaria. We have a few free cities in between here, including lands of Salzburg. Salzburg actually has significantly more lands than it does in EU4, not only in Austria proper, but also in the south of Germany itself in Bavaria. We've got good old Regensburg, Nuremberg. We have a new player in town, Eichstatt. I hope I pronounced that right. We have Bamberg, Ansbach, few that I'm not really sure how to exactly pronounce them. So I'm gonna pretend like I speak German and say Passau. That's how you say it, right? Passau. We got good old Augustus over here. Apparently we have Augusta Vindelicorum also, which is Augsburg, right? Isn't that the literal Roman name for that area? I think it is, isn't it? Is that a meme? Now we have here the loyal family map mode for EU5. We've got the Ascanier, which in EU4 only is present in Anhalt. The last holdout of the Ascanier royal family is actually a lot more spread out in EU5. The Wittelsbach not only rule in Bavaria, but they also rule at the start in Brandenburg. It should be Louis V, which was the Margrave of Brandenburg at this particular time. He was inaugurated in 1323, and he ruled Brandenburg up until 1351. The Wittelsbach actually ruled in Brandenburg for 3 generations. I think it was Louis the First, Louis the Second Brandenburger, and then first is Louis Brandenburger, then the second, and then we had Otto the Lazy or something of the sort. I remember had a strange name. And then afterwards, if you play Kingdom Come Deliverance, the House of Luxembourg took over Brandenburg for a couple of generations too, with Sigismund, the bad guy supposedly from Kingdom Come Deliverance, being technically the ruler of the Margraviate of Brandenburg. After the House of Luxembourg collapsed in Brandenburg, it was followed by the Hohenzollerns as we know them of today and as we know them in EU4. But yeah, at this particular period in time, it would be a good 50 plus more years of Wittelsbach rule over Brandenburg itself. The von Welf, or von Welf, I guess you could say, is ruling over the central parts of the Westphalian bits. I guess Hanover bits, not Westphalian. Westphalian would be a little bit more west, right? Ergo the name Westphalen. Von Hesse is also pretty well spread out around here. We do have a lot of lesser known dynasties too. The big boys obviously would be Luxembourg, Wittelsbach, Ascanier, Hesse, and Welf, however. But I guess you could put Griff in there for the Pomeranian bit. And also that is split between Griff and Ascanier, parts of Pomerania ruled by Ascanier, as were parts of the northern areas of the HRE. Bavaria is a formable nation because it doesn't exist. Remember, it's Lower and Upper Bavaria, not unified Bavaria. It is a tier 3 formable country. That means on par with Prussia. And it is, of course, one of the main goals when you're playing in the HRE as the Wittelsbach dynasty to unify and form Bavaria. You do need to have at least 18 locations or more, including the ones highlighted over here. So it's quite a few locations actually. It also seems like early in the game, if the Duke of Lower Bavaria dies from leprosy, which he starts off with, he will leave an underage ruler and you might receive receive this particular event, meaning you might be able to get all of Bavaria fairly early on as the Emperor of the HRE. So you got a unified Bavaria, you got leadership of the HRE. Bavaria is likely going to be the most powerful nation in the HRE until it gets contested by a certain Habsburgs to the east or southeast, I guess. Now you will be able to trigger the Treaty of Pavia. You have the option of honoring the treaty, or you can enforce your superiority over the Palatinate branch of the Bavarian house as well. This will give you the option to flat out annex the Rhine area, leading to this beautiful thing here. You have not only Upper and Lower Bavaria, but you also have the Palatinate areas, including the ones around the Rhineland, not just the northern bit of Bavaria. So yeah, I'd say that Bavaria is going to be insanely overpowered in EU5 in my opinion, rivaled pretty much by just Bohemia and Austria, I guess, in the central parts at least. This will allow you to revoke the right to inherit from the nobility. You will change the succession law to cognatic primogeniture, which means everybody has to subscribe to Ludi. That's what that means. I didn't make that up. Just don't look it up. We have a few really interesting events as well, and we have here a policy, Codex Bavarica, which will increase centralization, estate satisfaction, and equilibrium. You can also start the construction of the medieval Munich residence building in Munich, and it's gonna give +5 prestige. Okay, this is what it looks like once you finish building it. It lowers the expected cost of court and increases cultural tradition. It does have quite a bit of a cost though to build. You also have the Renaissance Munich residence afterwards, which increases literacy and cultural tradition. Again, doubles down on that. The Baroque Munich residency gives monthly research progress, which is huge, and doubles down on both the cultural tradition and the max literacy. It is expensive though. 500 gold is quite a lot. This is the privilege right to inherit that you can revoke. Itinerary court is a policy. It allows you to move your capital for cheaper, but it does lead you towards decentralization. And there's some unique works of art here that our Emperor Ludwig possesses, including the Coronation Gospel, the Saint Stephen's Purse. Ludwig's got to be careful with holding on to that. And we also have the Imperial Crown, the Imperial Orb, and the Maria Capel, which is a Munich chapel from what I can tell. Now you also get to build a grand cathedral in Munich, which is huge, and it will destroy the Marian Capel as consequence. There's some unique Bavarian technologies or advances too. Dukedom gives increase in monthly legitimacy. War score cost -10% for dreams of unification. Holy shit, that's actually insane. That's probably the most powerful advance I've seen out of all the nations so far. Pop conversion speed +10%. Oh, that's actually also really good. Cultural influence 25. Okay, I like Bavaria. So far, I feel like Bavaria might be one of my favorite nations in EU5. You also unlock the Bavarian breweries production method, which will allow you to make beer, which is awesome. We got the brewery here, and this is the unique production method for the Bavarian breweries. 1 grain to 0.25 lumber and tools, 0.1, and that gives you 1 ale, or actually 1.2. So actually is this one here. This is the one. I do have to say big shout out to Palando, one of the commenters on the forum. He has left a lot of really good feedback. I really hope the developers go through this because he put in a lot of work to write this down. A lot of great persons, government reforms potential, advances, buildings, works of art, and I've gone through it. I'll leave, of course, you'll have a link to the overall thread so you guys can check it out yourself. I do like the work he's put into doing this research here. Does deserve a shout out for sure. Johan also talked about subjects and how exactly they're going to be working in EU5, and I really like to see the differences between EU4 and EU5 here. We have the same system like in EU4 with subject loyalty. Once they become disloyal, they will be able to break away and ask other nations to support their independence. Exactly the same system as in EU4, but probably shouldn't say exactly the same system because in EU4, if a subject has below 50 loyalty, it's good. However, in EU5, below 50 loyalty is bad, okay? So you want them to be between 50 and 100, 100 being super loyal, which is good. They're going to stay as your subject, okay? If they're below 50 loyalty, then they will try to break away, and that's going to be considered a disloyal subject. It's literally, they just reverse the way it works in EU4, but it's the exact same system aside from that, okay? We see here that one of our subjects' loyalty for France is 61% is because their loyalty is above 50, then they're currently loyal. Wait, actually, in EU4, it's not loyalty, it's disloyalty, isn't it? So yeah, I guess they just replaced the disloyalty system with loyal. Now we do have diplomatic capacity. In EU5, the amount of diplomatic capacity determines how many subjects you can have. You go over the diplomatic capacity, you will incur some penalties. And we see here, every subject will have a different amount of diplomatic capacity that they take up. What determines the diplomatic capacity for your subjects are the subject type. So remember, there's different types of subjects. Then the amount of income relative, size of navies, size of armies. So you want to have a big ass army to keep them in check and also to lower the diplomatic capacity. And you want them to have a small ass army. You know what I mean? That's why, as you can see here, the bigger vassals is Flanders and Brittany, which have likely a stronger economy, more troops and so on, are going to take up more diplo capacity, whilst the smaller ones like Astarak have a smaller diplomatic capacity that they take up. And when you're over your diplo capacity, these are the penalties you incur. Loyalty of subjects reduced, and then we got the monthly prestige, antagonism impact, etc. So that's also the first time we see about antagonism impact, by the way. That's I would assume 100%, just me assuming, it's probably something similar to aggressive expansion, let's say. Perhaps they're renaming aggressive expansion with antagonist. Who's to say? Nobody. Diplomatic reputation is also minus 0.9. Remember, this is just 0.46 over the diplo capacity, and the penalties are massive already from 0.46. Imagine if you had 1 over diplo capacity, you would not be able to function properly in your world, right? So you want to make sure you're not going over your diplo capacity. Also, you see here that you get more diplo capacity from the kingdom rank in this particular case. So an empire is going to have even more diplo capacity. You have advances, that's technologies, and then values give a percentage modifier on the base and so on. In order to create a new subject, you need to have at least more than 2 provinces, and then you can create a subject of your own from scratch. You can also select the valid type of subjects that your country can have in that prov. One of the types of subject is the vassal. As you would imagine, a vassal pretty much does not have foreign policy, so the vassal cannot just stop being a vassal whenever it wants. It has to have an independence war to become independent. You can annex them plus 5 progress each month. Can only be done after 10 years, just like in EU4, you can only annex your vassal after 10 years, and they need to have 150 opinion with you. So that's different from EU4. You need 190 relations with your vassal in EU4. In EU5, it's only 150, 40 less than EU4. You can actually build RGOs in their locations. That's like the basic mines, like whatever the province itself produces. You can build the roads and whatever buildings in their locations too. This is the amount of diplo capacity required to have them as a subject. Flanders also gives France food access. That means if your units pass through their provinces, your units can replenish their food stocks with the food from Flanders. So my take is that EU5, the meta is going to be have subjects do all the food, grab the food for your armies from your subjects' land, even if it means that they're going to starve out. So they're starving, they have to deal with it, not you, and your people get to keep the food and they don't starve. That's probably an easy way to also lower the population of your subjects before you annex them and replace them slowly with your own population. And of course, they always join defensive and offensive wars. The Overlord also gets 20% embrace institution in Paris, prestige, and Flanders also gives 5.9 gold every month to France, whilst Flanders gets efficiency of their cabinet and 20% embrace in institution in Bruges, which is the capital of Flanders. Fiefdom is a new type of subject not seen in EU4. It is a junior title basically, which overshows that is the property of its overlord's ruler. It's only available in monarchies, and it cannot be created by diplomatic offers and does not grant any prestige, unlike what the vassals give, right? They give monthly prestige. A march is basically a defensive type of subject like it is in EU4. They pay half the gold compared to a vassal and cannot be annexed, but they do get discipline boost and better lasting fort, which are also cheaper. So kind of basically exactly the same thing like in EU4. Colonial nation is also a thing. You can create them in 2 ways. You can either do it from conquering overseas territory or by just having a colonial charter finish in the New World or whatever you're colonizing. They give 33% of their trade capacity and trade advantage and 10% of manpower and sailors, but they do pay 20% of their tax to the overlord. I'm going to say something that I know is going to piss off a lot of people. I actually don't like this because, again, being forced to have colonial nations in the New World means that you're going to get fuck all from your colonial nation. I actually want to directly own the land and have the option of establishing colonial nations if I want to, right? Because right now, colonial colonial nations, the fact that they only give just 33 trade capacity, trade advantage, and 10% manpower and 20% tax is nothing. It's literally nothing. Why not just own the land directly, seeing as it's a lot more difficult to establish colonies, and just actually reap the benefits? Like, it's pointless having a colonial empire if you're getting peanuts out of it. You know what I mean? You should have the option of taxing the shit out of them up to 90% tax or something. That would make it different. But like this, 20% is like, it's going to be exactly the same like EU4. It's going to be useless having colonial nation unless they change it. I don't know. Conquistadors are the leaders of private armies, and they're also subjects of yours. They signed contracts with their rulers to explore and conquer certain territories in exchange for the title of governor and assure the new lands and spoils. A unique type of subject only available to Catholic countries with the capital in Iberia. So that means the French are not going to get them. Only the Spanish boys are going to get them, or whoever has their capital in Iberia and they're Catholic. That means you can go Flanders, conquer an Iberian province, put your capital there, and you can have conquistadors. This advance is available from the Age of Discovery, apparently. A conquistador can be commissioned by selecting an area in America and then a character to lead them. It will also require 2,000 manpower and some gold to start. That's actually a lot. And it will start with preparing in a nearby good port. Now we see here preparing to start a conquistador to Peter in Lisbon. So he's going to require horse, cloth, leather, weaponry, liquor, and will be finished on the 30th of August 1337. If this is from the start of the campaign, there's a few months to start a conquistador. After they finish, they're going to start with their conquest of, in this case, Sotuta. It will spawn an army-based country in a location in the area, starting with about 2 regiments of conquistadors. They start at war with the owner of that location where they spawn, and they will automatically conquer any location they get control of, like the hordes system used to be a long time ago in EU4, or how it is in EU3, basically. When you conquer a province, automatically you get control of it. You don't need to do a peace deal to get it. They also have the capacity to raise levies from the local pops, even if it's from non-accepted cultures, which is actually pretty impressive. If they manage to get to peace or get enough locations, they will convert into a colonial nation of yours. There's more unique types of subjects that they're not getting into right now, such as appanages, which is a French unique one, state banks, which is the Italian ones, Hanseatic members, and such. Now, playing as the overlord is good, always good. This loyal subject cannot be annexed. Remember that the cost of annexation depends on the amount of cities and towns that the subject has. We see here monthly annexation progress is +2 because it's a fiefdom, so roughly around 30 years to annex a subject. Holy shit, that's a lot just for the Kingdom of Scania. There's also plenty of different subject interactions, like giving locations or provinces to subjects we have here. So we can cancel subject status if we want to. We can cede location or province, change the court language that they have, change to a fiefdom status, demand additional tribute, divert trade, embargo rivals, enable scutage, install new ruler, pay off debt, place relative on the throne, press sailors, request officers, return land, seize territory. That is a lot more diplomatic interactions that you have in EU4, that's for sure. Now, you noticing some of these are grayed out. That's because I'm assuming you're only able to do some of these depending on the type of subject, but you see all of them available. So they're only going to become blue whenever the prerequisites for them being available have been established. As a subject, you can assign your cabinet members to frustrate annexation. What that does is it slows down the progress of getting annexed by your overlord. You can also sow disloyalty, which increases your disloyalty towards your overlord, or better yet, lowers your loyalty. We see here the effective skill of sowing disloyalty from your cabinet member ends up with being a loyalty -14 to overlord. And seeing as we talked about the HRE earlier, we also should address the Bohemia development diary, which was actually pretty cool to see. Came out around the time of Kingdom Come Deliverance, and I've been playing the schnapps out of that game. I love it a lot, actually. We see here that Silesia has a ton of new subjects. Now, it's not divided into Opole and Glogo. There's a ton, like an actual ton. We also have Lusatia to the northern bits here, which is the Sorbian people, basically. Moravia is a pretty big nation onto itself as well. This is the starting situation here. They start, apparently, with a very interesting diplomatic situation, as Pavia says. We've got the Bavarians as our rivals and enemies. It means the Bavarians also rivaled us. There's a war as well going on with the Lithuanians, from what I can tell. Embargo on the Austrians, and we have a ton of subjects. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20 subjects we start with, and an alliance with the Teutons and probably one of the other Teutonic areas in the north. This is the diplomatic view here. Basically, they start in the big war against the Poles and the Lithuanians that the Teutons see themselves in as well. They got some unique reforms, the Bohemian Commonwealth. It increases the cabinet seats +1 and increases cultural capacity, which is huge. Inaugurational diplomat is more of a debuff from what I can tell. Teutonic law is a privilege for the commoners. Non-culture levy size +20%. Kol Zemski's Nim, which is the parliament. Okay, that's a unique interaction they got. Another advance is the Wagenburg regular regiment. So these units are unique units for the Bohemians. Speaking of, we haven't seen any unique ones for the Bavarians. That's interesting to see. These are in essence the wagon forts as we know of them, and they have a lot of food storage, as well as they take a little bit of extra damage morale and strength wise, but they're actually not too bad overall. Some unique technologies include Bohemian Crystal, which increases the glass output and increases prestige. Income from minting +10 is huge from an economical perspective, but it's available in the Age of Reformation, so a little bit later down the line. Suicide Wars is also one of the main events of Bohemia in this period. As you guys know, it's all about them religious dogmas, right? Well, this will trigger around the 1400, earlier than EU4, obviously. There's a few options. You can convert to Hussitism, apparently is what it's called. A lot of the pops will convert when you do that in the Bohemian area to Hussitism, or you can of course stay Catholic, whichever option you want to go for. We see here Hussitism as a religion. It gives auxiliary maintenance cost -25, religious influence increase, pop promotion speed, and conversion speed is huge as well. And only 90,000 will be converted initially, which is really not much. Then you have the Hussite Wars, which is between Pope Benedict the 12th and Jan Hus, I guess, right? Jan Hus. Apparently Jan Hus has really bad skills. Oof, that's unfortunate. We have some options here. Force conversion, prepare the defenses, align with the moderates, align with the radicals. I love the fact that we have an actual interaction just for this particular event itself. Is so many options. It's awesome. During the situation, which is very well scripted from what I can tell, you have a few options: force conversions, prepare the defenses, align with the moderates, basically the options we saw earlier above. You see what they offer here basically lowers a lot of opinions with other adjacent neighboring kingdoms, but it promotes radicals for 10 years. Our neighboring country will be more likely to join the war against us if we do promote radicals, so keep that in mind. Curious then, what's the benefit from promoting radicals, right? We have a few unique policies. Maestas Carolina, which gives centralization, nobles power, distance to capital. Remember that the further a province is from your capital, the more it increases in cost. You have the University of Prague, which you can establish. It will construct the university in Prague, 499 ducats, and you get +20 change for society values towards innovation. The Crown of Bohemia, also a unique event and also a work of art, the Crown of Saint Wenceslas, created in 1339. Of course, there's a lot of beer involved in the Bohemian realms, much like the Bavarian. You have the brewery in Pilsen, which I think is also the name of a beer, if I'm not mistaken, Pilsen beer. And that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.